Tutors, mentors, and the city with your host.com.
The City Tutors presents
Tutors, mentors, and the city
with your host.com.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Kevin.com Brown, and welcome to Tutors, Mentors, and the City. And please join me in welcoming my guest, Azikiwe Rich. Give it up for Azikiwe.
Azikiwe.
Azikiwe. You know, I should have asked you if I...
Azikiwe Rich.
Azikiwe Rich.
You know, everyone calls me Zeke, so.
You know what? I should have asked you, how do you say your name before I butchered it at the top of the episode?
Yeah, no, everyone calls me Zeke, so.
Zeke,
yeah.
All right. So, first of all, I always go by, my first question is usually the thing that catches my attention right off the bat. You go by Zeke. Your name is Azikiwe. Azikiwe.
Yeah.
All right. Is that an African name? Is that
it's Nigerian.
Nigerian name.
Nigerian. Okay. It's Igbo language. Nigerian. It means to ignore someone is better than getting mad at them.
What did you say? To love someone?
To ignore someone is better than getting mad at them.
Ignore someone.
Yeah, it's better than getting mad at them.
Okay. So I met a guy the other day who had his government name and then his Afrocentric name that he changed it to.
Right.
Is that your government name or is that a name you changed it to?
No, it's my government name. My nickname's Zeke. My parents named me. My parents were big into Black nationalism back in the 50s and 60s. So named after Nnamdi Azikiwe, who was the first president of Nigeria. My middle name is Kenyatta, after Jomo Kenyatta, who was a Nigerian nationalist as well. So, you know, named after some sort of historical figures.
Okay, Azikiwe. All right. Were you born here? Were you born in this country?
I was born in Hollis, Queens. Born and raised, yeah. You know, I just your reference earlier to the Ja Rule 50 Cent beef. Ja Rule's from Hollis as well, so you know, a lot of folks, celebrities are from that area. So yeah, I lived there my whole life until I moved to Jersey City.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I made the reference. I hadn't pressed record yet, so people are going to be watching like, what's this?
Yeah.
But I made it about history in my journey. But okay, so born in Hollis, Queens. You went to school, public or private?
First grade private. And, you know, I guess my mom wasn't really feeling, you know, the school or the money that she didn't see a really sort of big change in myself. So I switched to public school. I lived in Southeast Queens. I lived in District 29, which is one of the, you know, lower performing districts, you know, in Queens and probably New York City. My mom was like, yeah, we're not doing that. So she called at the time with the Board of Ed and she gave them sort of the story. And they had a program called Pick a District, something that wasn't publicized. No one knew about it. There's like an inside track. My mom's from North Carolina. So she called and spoke with someone from Board of Ed. This individual happened to be from North Carolina. And she said, hey, I like you. It sounds like your son's really bright. There's this program. Look, we can pick District 24 or 5, or I forgot the other district. My mom picked District 25. She said, great, we'll have a school bus, pick you up from 5 blocks from your house, be there at 7:30. And that was my journey. I went to school in College Point, middle school in Whitestone. I was always the only Black kid in my class, but that allowed me to sort of get to here, just navigating a different world of growing up in Hollis, Queens by day, and then, you know, by night, and then by school, I'm the only Black kid in my class, but always in the top class, you know, so.
That was fortunate, man. That was fortunate. Okay, so you did that from to 12th grade to high school. How far did you go?
Yeah. So it was second to 6th grade. I was in PS 2029, so shout out to them in College Point. 7th, 8th, 9th, I went to school 194 in Whitestone. So from public transit, you know, from school bus 2nd to 6th grade, and then public transportation 7th, 8th, and 9th, and then high school I went to Cardozo and Bayside.
Cardoza. All right. All right. Bayside Queens. Okay.
Yeah.
Then from what did a young Zeke do for fun?
I grew up in sort of a close knit community. So, it's playing tag with your friends and, I ran track and played basketball. So it was going to the park and, just kind of shooting anything what a typical kid would do. I stayed out of trouble. I wasn't sort of a troublemaker because I knew that, growing up with my mom in the household, my grandmother, I had my aunt who passed away, and her daughter, who was like my older sister. So I knew that, if I got into trouble, it would sort of cause my mom some grief and worry. So I always kept my nose clean, and people in the block looked out for me. So yeah, up and down the street, stay out of trouble, playing tag, water guns in the summertime, summer camp, going to the pool, up in Connecticut, wherever. My mom was always like, you need not to be around here in the summertime. So let me put you somewhere outside of New York City. Adventurous individual.
Okay, mom was making those sharp decisions. I know a little bit about Queens. I used to work at a club off Jamaica Avenue, a club called Encore. Huh?
Okay, Encore. Is it Encore? Okay, I've heard of that.
Q Club was there, so I'm familiar with Q Club. So imagine I'm from the Bronx,
right?
And I would take the Q44 to the very last stop to Merrick Boulevard, that little bus terminal there where the public is. And so my only landmarks in Queens were that location where the club was, and 40 projects. That's all I.
Yeah, my mom. They came. My mom's born in North Carolina, and then they came up here, and they lived in South Jamaica for a number of years before they moved. So that's like considered the south side of Queens, and they moved to the north side of Queens.
Okay.
Yeah.
So after high school, where'd you go?
I went to Loyola, Maryland, University of Maryland, Baltimore. The reason I got there was my mom was very simple. She said, we're going to go where they give you the most money, the most scholarships and grants. I want to pay as little as possible. Loyola at the time, I excelled in high school from ninth grade all the way through. So I started getting letters from Loyola probably sophomore year of high school, just like, hey, we're Loyola College. At the time, they were college. They transitioned to university because they built a school of education. And, my mom was look, we're going to go here. This is a good opportunity for you. So, yeah, they gave me some nice scholarships and grants. So the out of pocket, relatively speaking, was minimal as much as it could be. And that was sort of my journey, just being away from home. And, I know the first year freshman, I would get homesick. I was like, oh, let me just go home and see what's going on the block. And gradually, as time went on, I made more friends, lifelong friends in college, and I came home less and less. And that's where I really started to grow, just seeing different perspectives, different kids from, all over really the Northeast region, New Jersey, Long Island, Maryland, Virginia, DC area. And really, I think it changed my life. One of the best decisions, I could have made. My mom, could have, pushed me there.
Absolutely. So Loyola, I remember seeing. I know they had a basketball program. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a sort of big lacrosse and soccer school. Basketball, when we were there, they had some good players, but they just couldn't put it together. Year after year.
Now, is it a big school?
About 3,500, so not too large.
Okay.
Not too big. They're not a lot of folks of color there. I think it was like 4%. Over. I think if that number serves me right. But yeah, it was a small knit group. So myself and a couple of my friends, we hung out with everybody. So at some point it was like, not just hang out with the black kids, but also the majority, white school. But we met a lot of, really great friends over the years and really get that college experience that you sort of like saw in a movie or TV. This is my first glimpse into it. Like I said, I don't have any siblings. So it was like I got to visit someone at a college and stay for the weekend. So I'm like, this is all very new to me and I'm very big eyed. I'm like, wow, it's a lot, but definitely have to have a lot of self-discipline.
And what was your major?
Finance.
Finance. Okay. Did you continue the pattern of excellence while you were there?
I did. I would say that it took me some time to kind of adjust my study habits. So I would say like during middle school and high school, because I did so well, but like I would watch do my homework with TV on, and I would have things going on, but my mom never never, I won't say bother me, but she sort of left me alone because I was excelling in the classroom. So she's like, look, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Whatever you're doing is working. So it's like, some parents will say, turn the TV off until you finish your homework. But I was doing both. And, I was getting 90s, 100s on tests. So she left me alone. So when I got to Loyola, a lot of it, like, no one's telling you to go to class. And no one's telling you to do your homework, right? So if you just kind of just putz around, you'll let things linger. So I had to sort of adjust my study habits and learn that what I was doing in high school just didn't work for me here. So I excelled really. I would isolate myself. I would go to a study hall or academic building, and like I would study. I wasn't a big fan of group studying or group. I needed to be isolated, and that's where I excelled, just being alone.
Now, your transition coming from Queens to Loyola, it a culture shock for you? Did you run into obstacles, and if so, what kind?
From a socioeconomic standpoint, yes, right. Like I grew up in sort of say lower middle class, and I went to school with middle upper class kids, right? Like you have 18, 19-year-old kids that were driving BMWs and Mercedes and Saabs and nice cars on campus. I'm like, I don't know my friends' parents or even let alone mine had a nicest car, but you're 19 years old, right? So from a socioeconomic standpoint, it was sort of like, that was the wow for me. It's like, wow, like there's so much more out there in terms of like, just like finances, right? From a just cultural standpoint, the fact that I went to school in College Point, Whitestone, it was always the only Black kid in my class. I adjusted to folks that did not look like me. But I was always myself, right? I knew other cultures, so I had Asian kids in my class, kids from South Asia, kids from Italian and German. So I was very comfortable being around other folks. So my adjustment there was, it was other kids that grew up in predominantly white neighborhoods, white schools. So them being in school with me, it was probably a bigger adjustment because they're like, hey, I never had any really like Black friends, maybe some associates, but having someone that you're sharing a beer with or your roommates, right? Like it's a big shock to some of these folks here. So there was some learning. Like I remember one of my freshman nights sitting with a group of friends, and they were literally like asking me questions about just like Black people, African Americans, like culture. Like, is this stereotype true? What about this? And it wasn't from a place of like malice. It was a place of learning because they're like, I know where they're from. Like they're from a town in Suffolk County where the Black population is like 2%. So it was like a learning experience from both of us. I'm like, wow, like, and I'm enlightening them. So if they can go back home and say, you know what, I met a Black friend, a Black kid named Zeke, and like, what I thought about Black people was totally different. Like, I did my job, right? I served, my folks well. I wasn't going to obviously act a fool, but those type of sort of interactions was definitely a learning experience for both sides.
Okay, so you get your degree in finance. What kind of degree is that? That's a B what?
BBA, Bachelor of Business Administration. Yeah.
Okay, and then you did what?
So I came out and I worked part time. I had interned in like the summer at like Time Warner, and I didn't really. So I thought that I was like, oh, finance. I'll go like high finance. Like big company at the time, like Bear Stearns or like Morgan Stanley or these big companies. And I came out like just kind of like on a really bad job market. So I didn't really work for like a few months. I started working part time. I was working at like OTB. Like part time. My mom worked there. She worked in corporate and like real estate. So she's like, look, until you find a job, like you can work part time, you still have some freedom. So I was like working part time at like different branches, and like actually I learned about like betting on horses. So that was like the benefit of there. I also learned that gambling is like a real problem with some people, like like an addiction of seeing people day in and day out at these branches come in and like put money on horses and like just like it's going to go out of style. So obviously it wasn't like a career stepping thing, but it did serve, like it did fit in. It kept some money in my pocket. It kept me busy, kept me like out of the house, and at least that kept me productive. I did that for some time. I got a job consulting at this small firm in Garden City, Barnett Associates, which is now, now no more. They got bought out by a larger, I think Equifax, or one of these larger companies. I worked there for about 4.5 years. Wasn't sort of the hardcore finance I was looking for, but it was a lot of light analytics, analysis, spreadsheets, things of that nature. So I kind of got my feet wet in dealing with sort of client facing, dealing with, larger companies. And I was close to home. So I was driving to work every day, about a 20-minute commute. I was doing a reverse commute, right? So everyone is coming from Queens, going into Manhattan. I'm coming from Queens, going into Nassau County. So I'm doing a reverse commute. So I was there about 4.5 years. And, I was out obviously throughout the time applying to different positions. And, one day I found this agency called the Mayor's Office of Management and Budget, within sort of like a city hall, realm. And I was like, I applied to a few different budget analyst positions. And, I got a few callbacks. And the one that I liked was working with elected officials and administrative agencies. So, I interviewed really well. And it worked out. That was my sort of introduction to city government. And I've been in city government ever since. And I think that opportunity, just allowed me to kind of thrive early in sort of my career. And it's been a nice ride of like, you can transition, but that's how I got sort of from Loyola to like my first few years, on the job.
Yeah. So city government, from the perspective you're in, you're behind the scenes. You're not you're not considering like political running or anything like that.
No. I got a lot to say, so I would probably wouldn't last too long being someone. But look, if someone were to say, hey, like, you want to be a deputy commissioner or a commissioner at an agency, and it sounded like a great opportunity, then obviously I would entertain that. But I'm behind the scenes. I'm behind the scenes. Mayor's office, I was behind the scenes. I worked there for 5.5 years. Overseeing the budgets of, the borough president, city council, public administration office, citywide administrative services. So some really large agencies, working expense budget, capital, and revenue. So I was pretty versatile in terms of, balancing some budgets and working on some really big initiatives over the year under the Bloomberg administration. And then, transitioned from there to the fleet department of citywide administrative services, had a fleet division. And I got poached from OMB. We call it OMB. Like city government is a lot of acronyms. So OMB, and I got to DCAS. I worked there for about a year, almost 2 years, and just wasn't a good fit. It was very cliquey. A lot of the individuals that worked there were from another division, another agency. They were like a lot of friends, and just stuff like that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And I felt like I wasn't hitting my potential, and I felt myself plateauing with my growth, my personal growth. So, I again started applying again and put my name out there, and the Department of Transportation, came calling, and, I interviewed for actually 3 positions there. The first 2 I didn't get, but because I did so well on the first 2, the third one I had the interview for. It was sort of hey, do you want to take this job? We're creative. It was the start of the de Blasio administration, so they had a new commissioner. They were looking to repackage a current role, which was focused on sort of more database management and sort of like mapping. And he wanted someone with more of a finance budget background with some policy work. So that fit, that was right up my alley. So that was 2014, April 2014. And I've been there, ever since. Been kind of moving around the agency, Elevate. I just recently got a promotion, to executive director and chief performance officer. So, I got a staff of 8 people, and, kind of still, till the wheels fall off, right? So.
Wow. Okay. An executive director. I admire that. I respect that. So does your position isn't attached to the governmental regimes? You're there whether this guy's the mayor or another guy comes in or whatever.
Yeah. I'm pretty insulated from that. So what could happen is, say the mayor leaves, new commissioner comes in, deputy commissioners are probably on the chopping block, but he may want to come and change those folks around. So in terms of my work, in terms of the direction, in terms of some of the work that we're doing, that may shift a little bit that there's another focus, another higher priority initiatives that come along. But yeah, I'm good. I'm in a good place. From there. So and I will say, because we got to the work piece, while I was at, I would say, transitioned from DCAS to DOT, I got my master's from Marist College, which is up in Poughkeepsie. The reason I did that was, on my bucket list was to get a graduate degree. And when I got to OMB, I felt that a lot of kids there had graduate degrees already from Columbia, NYU, Baruch, City College. Like, there's a lot of kids there, and I was like, well, am I going to get elevated? Am I going to get promoted if I don't have a master's degree? And part of me was like, maybe I need to get this just to kind of level the playing field. So I put it on my bucket list because my parents were like, my mom just graduated high school. So I said, look, if I can also go to college but also get a graduate degree, that'll be just a great step, and just and I think elevate my career. So I found a program. It was an online program, Marist College. They do have a campus up in Poughkeepsie, but obviously just not in the cars because I have to work full time. But yeah, I did that in about 3.5 years. Got my master's. I graduated with honors, which was great. So I had that in my back pocket as well. So I was always applying to these jobs with like even more confidence because I do have this graduate degree. So someone can say, hey, we can't hire you because you don't have this piece of paper. It's like, yes, I do. Besides my qualifications, there. And so,
did you get the graduate degree before the pandemic or after?
Way before.
So
yeah.
I personally didn't hear of Zoom technology until the pandemic. What were y'all using Zoom back then?
Yeah, it was a lot of it was, there was some, I forgot whatever the program it was, but this was 10 years ago. So it was like very early on, but a lot of it was, like some of it was phones, like phone calls. It was like conference calls. A lot of just like email chats with your professor. So it was. I found it to be actually more challenging if I would have been in person because I had to interact with the message board or the chat board with my professor. I had to like type stuff if there was no video available or conference call available. So it was a lot of discipline on my behalf to make sure that I stayed engaged because part of your grade, was like class participation.
Yeah.
And if you didn't sort of have anything on a chat board, and some professor would say, there's a reading, read this by this date. Please comment on these 3 questions by this date, and they would close the board up. So if you didn't really get your comment in, and they didn't have any time to sort of, engage, you would be locked out. So, some folks didn't get opportunity to do so. So I definitely, I pat myself on the back because it was a lot of times where I could have been distracted, but I was like, look, I was focused. I need to get this done. It was already costing me, some money out of my pocket. So.
Yeah. Like I said, somebody asked me recently, whatever happened to Skype, right? Because Skype was the video conference. That was the mechanism prior to Zoom. Like I said, if it weren't for the pandemic, I would have never heard of Zoom, but Zoom exploded.
Crazy.
And nobody ever brought up Skype during the whole lockdown. I wasn't hearing, hey, let's try Skype, or it just never came up. But I couldn't imagine the concept, like even saying I'm gonna go to college online.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, I couldn't even imagine making that decision, right? Because the technology seemed impossible.
It was. So I applied to Marist. I was like, oh, like let me explore this online option, right? Because it wasn't like what is it, like one of these like ITT tech schools where it's like non-private. Like this is actually a school, it exists, and it's like a well-known school. They just happen to have an online program. It was like focused. A lot of my people in my class were like government public service workers. So the program itself was also catered to like public service, nonprofit, like government workers, professionals. So it was like catered to that. So it actually worked out great. I applied to the new school, and I applied to, I want to say at the time, maybe Baruch. I got into the new school. New school was an awesome opportunity. It was in person. It would have been great. The problem is the new school was like seriously too expensive for me. Like for 2 years, it was going to be like 70 grand or something, some obscene number. And I'm like, in terms of my return on investment, me spending this money on the new school versus going to Marist, is it going to really make a big difference in terms of my trajectory? And right now, obviously, it was a big investment doing what I did, because I don't think I would have did any better in terms of meeting people and alumni, and, sort of carved out my own lane, over the last, 9 years.
The new school came up 3 times in the last 2 days in my life, right?
Yeah.
Yesterday interview, and the person I was interviewing, she's a PhD now.
Oh, nice.
And she went to the new school, and she regrets the amount of debt she amassed, right? That was the first time it came up. Yesterday afternoon, I'm doing the interview, meaning the day before this interview with you.
Right.
Speaking to her, I said, it's funny you mentioned the new school, because I'm going to speak to a group at the new school. So I went to the new school for the first time yesterday, down on 12.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Beautiful building. Beautiful.
Right, it's awesome. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, and it looked like, it smelled like privilege. It smelled like the kids had. So that was the second time the new school came up that day, yesterday. And then I'm speaking to you today, and you're bringing up new school. So I'm a master's candidate now, but I had a successful career. I hate paying for college out of pocket.
Right.
Front lines with the students right now, right? And I'm watching, the mental, disruptions from a lot of these kids graduated high school on Zoom and graduated college on Zoom and lost 2 years of social interaction skills just by being, on this during lockdown during their formative years. So I'm on the front lines with them, and I'm all student all the time. I'm pro student. And so I have to say, I'm not passing judgment on the new school. If anybody from the new school just happens to watch this interview, you came up 3 times in my last 24 hours, and all 3 references were to the cost of the education, new school administrators. Y'all need to look at that. I know it's a business.
No, look, I'm sure they don't. I don't know if they'll get offended, but I remember when I got my acceptance letter, and they sent sort of this like aid and like the cost of, hey, you're taking, I think I was going to be like a something analysis, budget analysis major or concentration. Like basically in concentration, and they give you your coursework, and they give you the books and all, extra fees and all the fees, and at the number it was like for the 2 years. And I just couldn't just fathom. I was like, ooh, I was like, that's ouch. That was an ouch number. And I just like, look, if you could, like, more power to you, because the facility, I see where the money's going. The facilities are awesome. Yeah. I mean, granted, you're in the middle of like close to Union Square. But I couldn't pull the trigger there. I was like, ooh, I'll pass.
I don't believe in paying for college. I feel like I'm going to make such a contribution to this society when I receive my master's, and then I'm going for a PhD. My goal is to elevate, right? Elevate around me. But I guess if they know people got it, so why not go get it? I guess that's the mentality, and it is what it is. But anyway, okay. So let's back up for a second. It's throughout your story, I could tell that your mother was the superhero in your life. Right. And a lot of us, when we are kids, we have no idea the monumentous moves that our mothers are making. Keep the family together, to keep us safe, to keep a roof over our head, we have no idea until, if we're blessed enough to get the opportunity to look back on our lives and say, man, our mom because my mom was a powerhouse, and I didn't even know how powerful she was.
Yeah. Right.
I hear she had, all the perfect moves when it came to raising her son.
Mm.
During your journey, though, if you ran into obstacles other than mom, who did you turn to? Did you have mentors? Did you have people that,
Yeah, I mean, it was, my mom was there, my grandmother, who, so my grandma was in the house, and I'm the youngest grandkid, and I'm the only child, right? So, grandma definitely spoiled me growing up. She was the one that didn't mind spending a little bit more money on clothes because she knew I would wear them. My grandma was sort of the, a sounding board for certain things, so she got me. But yeah, I had, like I said, my aunt lived, in the house with us as well. So my aunt's mom passed away very early. So my grandmother sort of took her like her own daughter. My cousin, who was 11 years older than me, actually her birthday a few days ago, she's like my big sister. So she knew everybody in the neighborhood. She went to the, Andrew Jackson, went to like the cool high school. She's a cheerleader. She knew all the cool people, right? So everyone knew me. They said, oh, that's Tina's little cousin. That's my cousin. Oh, that's your cousin, right? And then fortunately, the way Queens is set up is that you have a lot of these sort of houses that are close together. So my best friend lived next door. We used to talk through the window in the driveway. And I had folks that, 7 years older than I was, that knew me while my mom was pregnant with me. So when I was born, it was like, some folks like, you can't remember not knowing Zeke because it's been so long. So over the years, I have guys look out for me. Because they always knew that I kept my nose clean. I was about sort of sports and academics. Sometimes my friends weren't that, and they would tell me like, "Hey, don't be like him, or don't hang out with that guy. Your friend, I don't like him. Do this other thing. Whatever you're doing, keep it straight." So people looked out for me because they knew what I was about. And in terms of like the thing about, remember people used to say, "Keep it real, keep it real, keep it real." Like no, like just be authentic self. Like if that's not your lane, if you're not in the street, that's not the lifestyle. You don't do it. Go to school, you go to the park, play basketball, come home, don't hang out, watch the company you keep, and we'll watch out for you, right? And that's sort of been, over my lifetime. There's always having someone looking out for me, whether it's mentors through work or my internships, it's people that I can reach out to just for advice. It's sort of been there, done that. And I always look to people, and even some of my friends. And sometimes, I'm a dad now. I have a 9-year-old who's in 3rd grade. And, I didn't grow up with my dad. So I'm one of the dads who didn't grow up with a dad and like doing the best that I can. Right. So I sometimes look at my friends and their relationships with their fathers. And I'm like, all right, I like that dynamic that you have here. Right. I'm going to incorporate that. I'm going to rent. I call it renting. I'm going to rent this for my interaction with my son. So, I use everyone around me, my sort of close circle. They may not know it or not, and I observe, and I'm very appreciative of even the advice that I get from other people, different walks of life. We live in Jersey City. It was an older white guy, probably mid-50s, and he sees me and my son Alex interact, and one day comes up to me, he's like, "Yo, man," he goes, "You're doing a really great job with your son." He goes, "I watched you guys over the years." He goes, and then Alex was doing something. He said, "Hey, man, listen to your dad." And he's leading in the right way. And guys, I still didn't catch his name. He moved out the building, didn't catch his name. But kind of a cool vibe to him. But just to hear that from a total stranger, to see me what I'm doing, I'm like, all right, I'm doing something right. So that some things like that are pretty cool to hear.
Yeah, man, absolutely. That's awesome. So go back to something else. So you worked for DCAS. DCAS stands for.
So that's Department of Citywide Administrative Services.
Yes. So that's where when the city is hiring, y'all get 1 billion applicants trying to get jobs.
Exactly. Yep.
Now, so how long did you work there?
I was there a year and 8 months to be exact.
Did you glean any tips? Somebody's trying to get a job with the city. Is there a strategy? Is there an approach? Is there a mindset that someone should occupy when they're trying to go for one of these gigs?
So I worked in the fleet division. So I was overseeing like fleet acquisitions and capital budgeting. So I will say that I didn't work in like HR. I will say that it has become more challenging to get a job with the city because of the civil service law. DCAS sort of oversees the civil service sort of commission, have you. So I would say that if you are looking to work in New York City, to take as many civil service exams as you possibly can. There's on DCAS, and you can search DCAS civil service exams. There's like a calendar for the whole year. They give you all the exams that are going to come out, the posting periods. You can find something that matches your skill set. And, there's a list of qualifications, right? It'll say bachelor's degree and 4 years experience, right? It'll say bachelor's degree and 1 year experience. There's a different, variety of qualifications. Education experience. What's your education? How much experience do you have? Sometimes you have to take an exam, sometimes you don't. Take as many exams as possible because you never know. You can insert yourself in any agency. And my motto is always just get your foot in the door. And once you get your foot in the door, then that's you kind of see the inner workings of your individual agency and kind of move around. But you just want to really get your foot in the door is the most important thing. And by taking as many exams as possible, you give yourself that many more chances, to get involved city government.
Okay. With your journey, with your life experience, outside of DCAS, just maneuvering through the game, a young person about to graduate this June, and then out to the real world. What advice would you give that person in this climate right now?
If they're graduating in May this year. I would say to take a deep breath, because I'm sure that they're looking at, if they're checking the news, a lot of companies, big companies, a lot of layoffs. The market is sort of fluctuating up and down. I mean, for the most part, the market is doing okay, but a lot of companies are laying off. I would say hold tight. If you can't find something, I would encourage folks to, look at a nonprofit or, take an alternative route. So maybe you had your sights set on, I want to work in a tech firm or, high finance or, whatever the case may be. If that's not open, if that door isn't open for you now, like, don't just put your head in your head. Is there an adjacent industry or where you can sort of stretch your legs and your skill set, right? So maybe you want to be a financial analyst, at JP Morgan, maybe those positions aren't open, but hey, maybe I transition I can work at this trucking company. They have a budget position open. Ideally you want to utilize your skill set, because if you just spent how much money going to school for 4 years, ideally you want to use that skill set to something. So it may not be your ideal company to start with, but at least you'll be using that skill set. And ideally you'll gain some experience, you'll gain some knowledge. And at some point, maybe your ideal position and opportunity will open up. But now you have, 1 or 2, 3 years experience that you can actually put in your resume and say, hey, I haven't been idle, I haven't been sitting around. Because what you don't want to do is remain dormant and not do anything. And someone looks at your resume and say, hey, like, we've been doing these 6 months. Oh, well, you've not been applying to jobs. Like, well, what about when you're not applying to jobs? What else are you doing? Like, you can volunteer. I think volunteering is underrated. You can volunteer. A lot of people, if you want to work for free, so you're going to work for free. And someone says, sure, you can work for free. We need your help. What can you do for us? And say, hey, I can do this. I can put, I can build your website, right? I can put something together. So it's definitely just stay busy, stay productive. A lot of what I've learned over the last few years also is doing informational interviews. So reaching out to companies that, you may not necessarily have a job opening or posting, but you admire, their company, their fundamentals. You can reach out to HR and say, hey, I just want to talk to someone in this department. Does someone have 30 minutes of their time? I just want to kind of have a conversation. And that's free, right? You're not asking them for anything, but at least you can kind of get put on the radar. And maybe their responses, you say, you know what? I thought this was going to be something different. I don't actually particularly like the responses that I got on the environment that they explained. I don't want to work there, and maybe that'll be something powerful versus you actually applying, getting in the door and working at a company 6 months saying, like, I don't like it here. I don't like the culture. I didn't understand the culture. I just think being resourceful. I think that's something my mom did, was just being very resourceful. Not hanging your head if things don't work out for you the first go, but keep kind of pushing through the door. Eventually you'll get there, but you just gotta kind of stay resilient about that.
I have never heard that recommendation before. The informational. You're the first person I've ever heard bring that up.
Okay. Yeah. No. I think it's a really beneficial, way to tackle just different companies that you admire. You can have a list, right? 5, and just reach out because you're not asking for anything, right? You just want to talk. And I think more people are willing to accept you in because you're not just asking for a conversation and not for a job. Like, give me a job. It's like, still want to talk to somebody, sure.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Okay. So you told me a lot about your journey. Here's a question that's becoming standard in my interviews. Sure. What did we leave out?
What did we leave out? I mean, nothing. I mean, from a personal standpoint, like, look, I love where I grew. I love where I'm from, Hollis, Queens. I have a tattoo on my arm. I appreciate all the people that have sort of made me who I am today. The journey. So I'll talk about Hollis, Queens until I'm in the grave. So I love where I'm from. I love where I'm at now. I have a wife, married, since 2011 or so, going on 12 years. My wife, met her, and, shout out to Teresa Rich. Got my son, 9 years old, third grade, finishing up. And, my mom is in Bayonne. Like I said, she's, still hanging out and watching my son when we need her too. So I think I've made her proud, just kind of my journey. So I appreciate the fact that she's around to kind of see what I've been able to do. I'm a testament to, her hard work. So I definitely, I wear that very, very, I take that very seriously, how I present myself to the world. So.
Well, first of all, I thank you so much for your time. Now, I got to say this. I don't know anything about marriage. I was married for like 2 hours. And so don't take my advice, right? My advice is the worst about marriage. But if you ever let your wife watch this interview, prep her, because it wasn't until I dragged it out of you. What did we leave out? And then you went, well, I don't think we left anything out. But I have 5.
No, sure. No, I'll give her a heads up. I'll give her a heads up.
But I admire your journey. It was a pleasure meeting you. I appreciate your time. Thank you. You dropped some jewels. You dropped some jewels for a city guy. Because I tell you, when I went back to college, the first thing that caught my attention was the dropout rate of Black men in colleges across the country is the highest. It's the highest. The only people that have a higher dropout rate by like 1 percentage point is the American Indians, right?
Wow. Black
men will drop out of college for any reason. You talk to us crazy dropping out, right?
Like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah. But also, a lot of us are multi-talented, and we think we can make a lot of money so many other ways.
Right.
But the point is, in college, we are endangered species, right?
Right.
And in most of my classes, there's I'm one of the 2 guys, one of the 3 guys with the 9 women, because women make the decision to get their degree and they get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ours is a different story. So one thing about me, I embrace my responsibility to help these young men, because I can't even, I don't have an excuse for it, but I understand the perception, the burden. I understand it, right? The delicacy, right? We're strong, so you wouldn't normally attach the word delicate to our journey, but it's a delicate journey for us, right? To take the path you took, having a strong mother, being there and making those moves, and which is so powerful. And you might have benefited from the fact that what would you have? No dad in the picture, or a dad who does everything wrong raising you, right? Like it's like a tough call. It's a tough call right there, right?
I mean, look, I definitely, there was a point where I think about this, right? I thought about, hey, if I didn't want to listen, if I didn't want the structure, I could have went to go live with my father. He lived in Brooklyn and in Fort Greene. I could have went to go live there. My mom has mentioned that, when I was young, I remember it was like, you want to go live with your father over in the projects? go ahead. And I was like, I like the house over here. My friends over here. I don't mind the rules, right? So no, things would have definitely been different for me. I know without a doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I appreciate having the opportunity to have this conversation with you. You shared some great things. My daughter's older than both of my daughters are older than your son, but my daughter's 28, graduated from Howard University. She calls me up for advice, and the first thing I say is, "Girl, I don't know. Why you think I know?" And after I joke, I never tell her what to do.
Okay.
I tell her what I would do
Mm-hmm.
in that situation, because if it goes wrong, I don't want her blaming me. Right. I tell her what I would do, and I say, "But you make your decision. You a grown woman." Because I've seen people get advice and then call somebody, "You're the reason. It's your fault." No, it's not. You better own it.
Right.
But yeah, I'm also the national spokesperson for this organization called Fathers Forward.
Okay,
and
nice.
Found when I discovered the organization, I signed up. I begged them to let me be a part, because when I had my daughter 28 years ago, nobody cared about fathers. Fathers were getting there were no organizations to support dads. They just assumed we were all deadbeats, assumed we didn't want to raise our kids, assumed we were dodging responsibilities.
Right.
Now, when I speak to fathers, what I say is half the job is showing up. Just show up, keep showing up, just keep showing up and keep showing up.
Literally, it's so, like, I've learned that, right? It's showing up, obviously your kid asks you for stuff, but I'm there. Like I pride myself to this day of never missing like a school play or performance, or because when I even at work, I lead with, "Hey, I have a kid and I may come in late one of these days because there's a play or a performance or something." I lead with that just to sort of tell you, like, this is who I am. I'm not compromising. Because there was a quote recently: "Never compromise your family for work." I stay true to that. I just won't. Because if you don't allow me to do that, then like the work will suffer. And so I pride myself on being like a good dad.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. So kudos to you. Keep up the great work. And Mr. Executive Director Zeke, I appreciate your time. And thank you so much for joining us on Tutors Mentors in the City.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you, bro.
Yes, sir. And I'll see you on the next one. All right.
Absolutely.